Hi everyone! Thank you for joining today's program, Digital Weekends with the Bruce, Sink or Float. Today you will be making your own block of frozen items you see on screen and learn about the science of density with different objects. So let's get started. I hope you have fun. So to get started, let's get those supplies. The first thing you'll need is a Tupperware container filled with water, just like I have on screen. The next thing you'll need is a Tupperware top. So you'll see that on screen. Mine's just red. Don't worry about what color you have. And you'll use this once you put the water in your container. The next supply you'll need is a sheet of paper. It can be lined, it can be blank. I'm just using this white blank sheet of paper. The next thing you'll need is a pencil. I'm just using a normal pencil, but you can use markers, crayons, or colored pencils, whatever you have available. Then the next thing you'll need is items to put in your water for this experiment. So I'm going to pull some of mine out. I have an assortment of things like pipe cleaners, puffy balls, beads, different buttons, and toys. Pull whatever you have around your house that you don't mind getting wet or frozen. So as you see, I'm pulling them all out. There is an assortment. Don't be afraid to have a mix of things, because what we're going to do today is test to see what will float or freeze and sink to the bottom in our water in this experiment. Now let's get to the fun part of this digital weekend and this experiment, which is the prediction making portion. So remember that sheet of paper and pencil, you're going to want to pull that back out. So with the sheet of paper on one side writing top and on another writing bottom, we're making two columns where we'll make predictions about what will freeze to the top or freeze to the bottom in our container of water. So set that up for yourself on that sheet of paper. And then remember those things we mentioned earlier, the toys, the craft supplies, the different things that I had in a bag. You're going to want to pull those back out too. That's what we're going to be using to making those predictions. So pulling them out, put them in the columns with the help of your adult, and think about what you think will either freeze to the top or freeze at the bottom of the water. And if you need to, take a picture of this or write it down as well on your columns, because we're going to use this to check our water afterwards and see what actually froze at the top or what froze at the bottom. Spend some time talking with your adult about why you think something will freeze at the top or sink to the bottom and freeze there. Here comes the fun part. You're going to get that container I mentioned earlier and fill it with water, just like you see on screen. My container is already filled with water. The next step you're going to want to do is go grab those assorted items that you use to make your list with. And you're just going to put them in the water. See if they float, see if they sink. Spend some time with your adult, messing with the items and seeing how they respond in the water. Make some notes to see if they float or if they sink, what things stand out. And as you'll notice, some items may change over time as they sit in the water. Some items may have started off floating but are sinking. Like I said, get those observations, spend some time, and think about what happens next. Now that you've spent some time making some observations of the items in the water, get that lid and we're going to close it up on our container, and we're going to move on to our next step, which is the freezing process, to see what happens after the water freezes. So make sure that lid is closed and none of the water can get out and all of the items are sealed in. We'll move on to the next step. Our next portion is putting the container in the freezer. Make sure your freezer has room for it. As you can see in mine, I had to make some room. Once you've made that room, place that container inside the freezer for 24 hours. We want to make sure the water freezes in there and is nice and solid before we pull it out.
24 hours later.
It's been 24 hours later. Now pull out that frozen cube of water with items in it and let's start to explore and see what floated to the top or sunk to the bottom. Now that we've pulled out our container of frozen items and water, take that lid off and see if you can get your block of ice out of the container. Mine came out really easy, there was no issues. And one of the things I recommend, even if you can't get your block of ice out, is exploring and seeing where those objects ended up after they froze. Did they land at the top or did they sink to the bottom? Spend some time observing that, feel around your ice cube and feel those objects and see what happens. And make sure again to get that list you made and compare it and see what happened. Now remember that sheet you had, bring it up and bring your cube down along with your pencil to write down the items that floated to the top or froze to the bottom. So you'll see me on screen writing down the items that froze. Take some time with your adult and talk about why those items might have frozen to the bottom or frozen to the top. Maybe it was something to do with their weight, maybe it was something to do with the material they're made of. Talk about it with your adult and make some scientific guesses as to why you think certain objects landed and froze where they did. Once you have your list done, what I want you to do now is put away that list, and we're going to spend some more time with our block of ice and see it melt. Spend some time leaving it in the sun or running it underwater, whatever is easiest for you. We're going to see what items come out first and how they come out. This should be fun as well. You'll be able to pull them out of your block of ice and see how they respond. Are they the same as before, or did they change in shape and size? Do they feel different texturally? Explore these objects again and still take note of where they're at. Some of them maybe have moved since melting, and some may be in different spots. Wasn't that fun? You guys just did a simple science experiment at home, but now it's important to learn why certain objects sank or floated in the ice and the water. The density of an object is what determines what that object will sink or float. If an object is less dense, having less weight, then other components in the liquid will cause it to float. When an object floats, it displaces the weight of the fluid equal to its own weight. An example of this is when tossing rocks into a bucket of water, the rocks will sink. This is because the rocks are denser than the water, so they displace the water or push it out of the way. If you enjoyed this digital weekend and want to share that fun, with the permission of your adult and using the hashtag Bruce Museum, please share this activity and everything you've done with it on social media. And if you're looking for more digital content from the Bruce Museum, please visit www.brucemuseum.org. Bye, friends!